Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our round one prop preview for the Valspar Championship. Gonna break down what to expect from the Innisbrook Resort Copperhead course, the venue for this week, and then of course a look at the Prize Picks and the Underdog Fantasy prop boards to give you an idea of a few of the props that I have my eye on here for Thursday's action. And by the end, you should have the research that you need to go out there, make a few slips yourself, and a little bit of a sneak preview of what I'm targeting over there on the Patreon for Thursday. So first off, let's start with the course, which can be a tough one. I would say in 2022 played a little bit easier than what we've seen in the past. That was a scoring average of right around 0.77 shots under par. Your driving accuracy, your green and regulation percentages were a little bit higher than what you're used to seeing. And the reason I say that is first off, the rough was a little bit tempered last year, wasn't nearly as gnarly as what we're used to seeing. And then of course, from the weather perspective, they had ideal conditions for 3 out of the 4 rounds. So a lot of that was just going to help players out there. And there's been years, especially when Paul Casey won in 2019 and 2018, where the winning score was closer to 8, 9 under par, and then historically, the further back you go, the harder this course played. So had a little bit of a different identity than what you've seen the 2 years that Sam Burns has won. And one thing to note is that this time around, the rough is going to be 3.75 inches around the Innisbrook Copperhead course, as opposed to the 2.5 inch mark from last year. So they're clearly trying to juice it up a little bit, maybe add a little bit of difficulty to the fold, and also have constricted the fairways. They've taken them from an average of 28 yards wide that you can see on here for the Data Golf page, down to just 22 yards for this year. So expect the course to perhaps play a little bit closer to what we've seen historically here at this venue than what we saw last year. So I'm going to bring up the Patreon. We'll talk about it a few times here. Of course, this is where I post all of the props, all of the write-ups that I'm going for all 4 rounds of action, not just here in round 1. But what I want to point out here are the historical averages versus the 2022 averages. The historical averages, of course, a little bit more difficult. You can see the scoring average of plus 0.7, and the birdie or better and bogey averages are significantly more difficult or a little bit more harsh than what you've seen there. So you can look at the differences between them down there. What I'm using for this week to try and do a lot of my analysis are the historical averages. So these more favorable conditions that we saw last year, I think might be a little bit misleading considering some of the changes that we've already talked about, and of course the weather. So here for Thursday, you can see the wind gusts are going to be significant in there in the morning. Now, I'm doing this video on a Tuesday night, so it's a little bit early to be making these decisions, but if we take a look at the bird's eye forecast over here for all 4 days, you'll see that it's going to be windy Thursday, extremely windy for Friday and Saturday, and even, I know we're 4 or 5 days out at this point, Sunday's looking like a bear too. So don't expect conditions to be nearly as easy as what you've seen, at least there for 2021 or 2022. So with that being said, what props am I getting to? And it's worth noting, guys, unfortunately, a lot of props have already been bumped based on what I posted on the Patreon, and that was within a half an hour to an hour of posting. So, one of the huge benefits to being over there is being able to set notifications on Patreon, getting props as soon as I'm posting them, because it's been a slim pickings of late, right? They've gone down relatively quickly, which I guess is going to happen when there's a lot of action coming in on props. But one that has lasted and is still there is the Eric Van Rooyen over 2.5 birdies. Now the average you can see over here was 2.89 birdies historically, so still over that 2.5 mark. He does have an early morning tee time, which means that he will be playing in slightly harder conditions in the afternoon. But the thing that's going for EVR is that he's a top 45 player on tour this year when it comes to birdie or better percentage, and considering the field strength, that would put him up there in the top 5, even top 10 when it comes to birdie or better percentage for this field, making him an excellent pick. So I do like the over there, especially when you compare him to some of the other guys at 2.5. He's just clearly the best player out of the bunch. Over there for greens regulation, actually don't have this prop in yet. I may end up adding it tomorrow. My original prop was the over on Justin Rose at 11 greens. Now, he got bumped to 11.5, as you can see, but Keegan Bradley, that same kind of player, he's projected right at the field average. So, like I said, I'm using these historical averages as opposed to the ones from last year. If you're using the averages from last year, I mean, this would be an absolute steal, right? He would be, right around 12 greens of regulation. I think it's going to play slightly more difficult, so closer to the 11 greens regulation average that we have had historically, but even so, Keegan Bradley, probably at least the second best iron player in this field behind Justin Thomas, if not the best iron player when it comes to consistency in that green regulation category, should not be projected at the field average, even if he's playing in the harder conditions in the morning. So I'm like the over there. When you compare him to the other guys at 11, he is just head and shoulders the best approach player out of the bunch. And the last prop that you've got here is fairway percentage. So I'm taking the over on Tommy Fleetwood. My original prop here was the over on Webb Simpson, who is one of the top 40 most accurate players on tour and is typically closer to the top 25 in that category when it comes to driving accuracy percentage. And though Tommy Fleetwood isn't quite as elite in that category, again, this is, one of the props that I had to change up because of bumps, he's still in the top half of the PGA Tour when it comes to that driving accuracy. And considering the strength of the field, considering that the average rate was right around 7.93 fairways, a player that's, even if just they're slightly better than average, you'd have to lean on the over, right? A lot of them are going to end up pushing at 8, but considering that he has a PM tee time, should have the best conditions there for Thursday, is somebody that I did take the over on. Now, unfortunately, because we do have 3 all overs here, you are going to get slightly penalized when it comes to the payout. So maybe go with the flex, maybe just split it up into a couple 2-mans. Either way, I would be more than okay with playing those 3 props. Over an underdog, we've had a lot of these bogey props taken off. So you can see the only one left on the board is this Keegan Bradley over 2.5 bogeys. No matter what year you've played this, it's played well over a 2.5 bogey average. So you can see the historical average is closer to 3.4 bogeys per round. Last year only played to a 2.6 bogey average. Again, I'm expecting it to be a little bit more difficult with that rough. So an AM wave golfer like a Keegan Bradley, who's already prone to making a lot of mistakes, is going to be in harder conditions, and of course is the only guy left on the board here at 2.5 bogeys, is still a play that I would definitely take the over on. Joel Damon, so I like the bogey props more. If they end up coming back, just smash the overs on literally the entire birdie board. I should say bogey board there at 2, maybe 2.5 bogeys. But this under on Joel Damon I like too. He's over at 3 birdies on Prize Picks, so there's of course a little bit of value to be had there. You can see he's at 3 right there. The average rate historically is closer to 2.89 birdies. Last year was closer to 3.5. With the longer rough, guys that are in the morning wave, I think, are really going to struggle with those windy conditions. So though Joel Damon, I love him. I'll be playing him in DFS this week. You've got to be taking the under there. Just a lot of guys are going to make 2-3 birdies in the morning. And even the PM wave golfers, like Brian Harmon, for example, I would consider taking the under there too, right? He's a little bit more conservative, and even with ideal conditions, I do think that longer rough, also the greens having a little bit less fringe to them, is going to make a massive impact when it comes to scores. So those are props that I'm getting to. Again, if you want access to everything that I'm playing, make sure to check out the Patreon page and to try and beat those bumps. They've been a little bit quick with them, but hey, there's a lot of action coming in, a lot of people getting to the sport, so I understand it. I guess you've got to be early to the party to get that action. So that's the best way to do so. There's a link in the description of the video. $10 a month gets you access to all of these write-ups that I'm doing, all the props I'm taking, and all of the DFS content that I'm posting, whether it's for Draftkings, DFS, all that sort of fun stuff. So make sure to check it on out, boys. But until next time, best of luck with all of your slips, all of your props, outright bets, or lineups here for this week. Make sure to hit that like button before you hop on out of here. Go ahead, comment down below what your top prop on the board is, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of the content in the future, including live streams. We'll have live streams for rounds 1 through 4, where we go on all of your questions over the prop side or on the DFS side, and all the prop videos to come in the future as well. Like I said, best of luck. I appreciate all the support here, and I'll catch you guys next time.